is Jim's going to be kind of monitoring, but I
Okay.
think, are you good to go?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Okay, so if I'm just going to remind that if you could record it, then we'll have that that record.
Sure.
All right. So it being the evening of May 12th at 6:45, and a quorum being present, I'm going to call the meeting of the Conservation Commission to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposes strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted at this meeting. Board members will participate in this meeting remotely as this meeting will be accessible to the public via the Zoom online option. There is information available at the town website, www.bellinghamma.org. And we will proceed. Also, moving forward in this meeting, the chair instructs the meeting administrator to withhold access to speak at the meeting until or unless such persons requesting to speak are visible on screen, and respectfully request such access. Okay. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold continuations of public hearings in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposal to repair an existing failing septic system located within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands at Assessor's Map 79, Parcel 3, 721 South Main Street, Bellingham. Margaret Bacon, Civil Site Engineering, River Road, Uxbridge has submitted the filing on behalf of Mark Drainville, South Main Street, Bellingham. The continuations will be held via the Zoom online option on Wednesday, May 12th at 6:45. Hi, Mike. Okay. So before we proceed with the presentation, I see that the applicant is present. I'm going to take an opportunity to thank some people who were instrumental in putting this on the fast track so that we could wrap this up. Bruce Wilson, our town health agent, Ann Matthews, our conservation administrator, and Margaret Bacon, the applicant's representative and engineer who designed the project. So I want to thank you guys for moving this forward and helping us to get this done. So Margaret, you prepared to share, and you can show us the revisions. It's already been distributed, but as it's a public hearing, if you would do that, I'd really appreciate it.
Sure. Do you want me to share the screen or just go over the changes?
You know, if you share the screen, I think it might be a little more illustrative.
Okay.
Sean?
You should have that ability now.
Yeah. Oh, hang tight.
Beautiful.
Okay. I'm just going to zoom in a little.
Sure.
Okay, this is a proposed septic repair for an existing 4-bedroom house. Now, apparently at the last hearing, we had missed a drainage pipe that goes right along the side of the property. You can see it right here in blue.
Mm-hmm.
The earlier design, due to the slow perk rate, the system takes up the whole backyard. There's nothing I can do about that. I have to maintain a certain square footage. Actually, the square footage is it's about 1,700 square feet. That's how big this system has to be because I have a very slow perk rate. But with that said, And with this drainage pipe here, I was able to reconfigure this rectangle to accommodate the Title V requirements, still stay out of the 50-foot buffer zone of the wetland, and still be in compliance with Title V. I'm trying to zoom in, but for some reason, when I do, it just kind of loses part of the system. I don't know what's happening there.
That's okay.
Oh, there you go.
No,
Yeah.
no.
For some reason,
You can move it down here. Oh, I'm
No, she's
pointing.
lost the detail. She's
Yeah,
lost
yeah.
the detail.
I don't know why that's happening, but if I go back to the 25%,
Get over here.
it shows it. Maybe it's a memory problem.
I didn't see.
So basically, all this right here is the septic design. I was able to make it a little fatter and shift it this way. So I'm 10 feet away from that drainage easement, and I don't touch the 50-foot wetland line with my system. And these revisions have been approved by the Board of Health.
Good. You know, Margaret, Ann and I were out there inspecting this. We stood on the outfall for the drainage pipe.
Mhm.
We saw the catch basin in the road, and we never put together that there was a pipe in the system. I mean, Mike O'Haron, one of our members, picked that up at our last meeting, and, you know, I'm glad he did.
Me too. I'd much rather find out now than during construction. You know, it's the same here. I didn't give it a thought, and I know when we flagged that wetland, that pipe is half buried, so it's not real evident. And, you know, we miss it. I think my surveyor should have picked it up, but he didn't pick it up, and it just kind of fell through the crack. So I'm glad it did get brought up at the last meeting. So that was a good thing.
Well, yeah, and I know it kind of held up the Drainvilles, but I hope they understand that this revision was fast-tracked. And I don't know, does anybody on the commission have an observation, a question? I mean, we picked up the error.
Well, just two quick questions. One is, when looking at the order of conditions Ann had sent out for other septic repairs, I noticed on some of them we're calling out removing, pumping and removing as per Title V. Old tanks, is the old septic tank being pumped and removed? I didn't see that in the order of conditions for this site.
It is on the plan, but yeah, that's pretty much standard. The old tank cesspools get pumped and removed.
All right, I just didn't, like I said, I was looking at order of the conditions, not per se the plans. The other thing was, since Margaret, you just referred to it as a drainage easement for that drain line in blue. On the far left, it's far too small for me to see, but I noticed it when I was looking at the plans. There is information that's typed in and boxes that are checked off on the far left. I don't know if you can scroll over there and make it larger.
Over here?
All the way to the left of the plans, the far left side. Keep going and then down.
Yeah.
That area down in there, the verification, there's one box that was checked off that said, are there any easements on this property? And then no box was checked. Since you're referring to it as a drainage easement, you might just want to recheck that box.
You're correct. That should be checked, absolutely.
Okay. I figured that was just left over from the previous, when we didn't know that there was a line, drain line there or something. That's all I got.
I do appreciate the commission fast tracking this for our client. You know, they do have a sale, and so, yeah, and it was our fault we missed that. So I appreciate that.
Well, we missed it too. We were in the field. So the bottom line is the system's been redesigned. You've been able to maintain distance outside the 50-foot setback. So a local upgrade is not required for that. You meet the square footage requirements. The Board of Health has signed off on it. If there are no further questions or
Cliff, we actually had a question from the chat asking how far away the leaching field is from the wetlands.
I think it's 52 feet. Is that about right, Margaret?
The actual system, let me just, I got a scale right here.
Okay.
It's a little over 50. So probably the closest point our system is I don't know, 54, yeah, 54 feet roughly, 54.
Okay.
The closest point that I'm scaling right now.
And how far away is the toe of slope to the wetlands?
The grading, that's a little different. So the grading of 95, that's actually right at the 50-foot line.
50 foot? Okay.
I have to maintain a 3-to-1 grade, so that's right, 50-footer. And actually, it's the system that per Title V can't be within 50 feet.
Excellent. Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments? I know the Drainvilles participated in the hearing the last time. I saw that Mark was up. I don't know if he has a question.
It's not Mark.
Is it?
It's Mr. Drainville.
Mr. Drainville.
I
Okay.
guess not. Okay.
All right. That being the case, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing and issue the prepared order of conditions.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. By unanimous vote. We're going to have some items to be signed. So, Margaret, we're going to try to get this signed on Saturday morning.
Sure.
Do you want to arrange to have it picked up on Monday, or do you want Ann to mail it?
Yeah,
to
the
you?
best thing is to have, probably the quickest thing is to have one of us pick it up.
Pick it up on Monday.
Yeah,
All right. Perhaps you could reach out to me so I can make sure that it's ready to go.
Sure. And question, does anybody ever bring up having those order conditions double-sided? Is the registry taking those?
It appears so, Margaret. I know you've asked me this before. I can make it single-sided if that would be easier for you.
Well, could you? Because I can actually record these right from my office. If it's single-sided, I can scan them in. If it's double-sided, they get kind of dirty. The copy's not real clear.
Okay.
You can do that single-sided to make my life a little easier.
Okay. I'll do that.
That'd be great.
Okay.
We always sign multiple copies, so maybe we can make one single-sided
Yeah.
and the copies double-sided. We make a number of originals because frequently between the applicant or the applicant's representative and the registry, inevitably on occasion, documents get lost.
Right.
A
Good
couple of
idea.
spare originals, but we'll make sure we do that. Okay, so while we have people here, how does Saturday morning look for folk?
I can do Saturday.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, 9 o'clock.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Noel?
Yep.
I may or may not be able to make it. I have a wedding that day.
Getting vaccinated.
It looks like Sean said yes. Mike,
Yep.
Noel, Ariane,
Okay.
No.
and I will sign it as well. So we'll have a majority.
I can be there too.
Brian can.
Brian
there
too. There he
is.
is. Okay.
Our die-head Brian. I
Okay.
didn't know if we'd see you tonight, Brian.
Perfect. All right. So Margaret, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we will get this signed and issued.
Great. Thanks again.
All right. It's 7 o'clock, so I will proceed with opening the next continuation. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold continuations of a public hearing in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, on the notice of intent for the proposal to construct a new access roadway improvements to existing roadways, stormwater management facilities, utility improvements, including a pump station located within a 100-foot buffer zone to bordered wetlands, located at Assessor's Map 45, parcel 56 North Main Street, Mill Street, and Common Street, Bellingham. Mark Allen, Allen Engineering, Hopedale, Mass. Has submitted the filing on behalf of Dennis Frayne, Bellingham Town Administrator, 10 Mechanic Street, Bellingham. The continuation will be held via the online Zoom option on Wednesday, May 12th at 7. Okay.
Recuse myself from this meeting.
So member Ariane Barton has recused herself as she's done some work previously for a representative of the applicant. Okay, so I think at this stage of the game, oh, there's Mark. Okay, at this stage of the game, I think that the most important issue to be decided before we proceed with any further review is the issue that we seem to be discovering with DEP relative to the 50-foot setback for infiltration structures. Now, we have, DEP has weighed in on this when they issued the file number, highlighting the fact that at the time, there was only the one basin at the bottom of the hill and that it did not meet the 50-foot setback. I know that it was noted in peer review comments back in February, I believe. The commission has discussed it. I know the administrator has met with the applicant. So I think what we're waiting for here is an opportunity to clarify the issue, because if in the eyes of DEP, the structure needs to be moved, then that will necessitate a change to the plans. If DEP alerts us to the fact that it's acceptable the way it is, then we can proceed with the actual in-depth engineering review. So Mark, have you got anything to?
Yes, Mark Allen, Allen Engineering, representing the applicant Kevin Lopez or Lopez Building Corp. Snowflake LLC. We were in receipt of Frank's letter on Monday of this week, and we did go through his letter in detail, and we have submitted, at least to Jim Kupfer, I'm not sure, yeah, he's on this call now, our interpretation of the definition that DEP puts out in the stormwater management book. We've been using this definition for, I think, 15 years now, and we've always designed basins to the high water mark, and DEP has always agreed with us, not only in Bellingham, but in all over the state of Massachusetts. And we did have 2 out of the 11 basins within 50 feet of the wetland, and we have revised those 2 basins to be greater than 50 feet to the basin. To the wetland, I'm sorry. And the horizontal measurement is always from the edge of the wetland flag to the actual infiltration portion of the chamber or the open air basin.
Mark, can we hold, remember, with the planning board, this is a combined operation, but with the Conservation Commission, it's for the roadway. It's for Common Street. It's not for the Red Mill.
This pertains to both.
But we're dealing with the Red Mill. So you're talking about moving basins, but on the Common Street portion, you haven't moved any basins?
Yeah, we did. We pulled it, if you recall, the first basin that we had on Common Street was right up against the wetlands. And then the applicant agreed to move the basin 25 feet to the toe slope.
And that's where it remains to be located, Mark?
Correct. And then it got resized again because we took a little bit of flow away from the first basin and redirected some additional flow to the second basin on Common Street.
Okay, so we are, right now, we're just dealing with the Common Street stormwater management.
Correct.
Okay,
And those two basins have also been designed where the 100-year peak elevation inside the basin is greater than or at or greater than 50 feet to the wetlands. So what we've done just today for the commissioners is we've gathered up 5 or 6 different examples, both in Bellingham and in Hopedale recently, that have been approved by DEP and your commission that actually show this exact interpretation of the definition in the stormwater regulations. Each of these projects has always held the limit of infiltration to be 50 feet from the wetlands. Very similar to the last application that had a septic system at 54 feet, but the toe of the slope kind of can grade off into the 0 to 50. It's not part of the infiltration area. The infiltration area occurs at the bottom of the basin, not in the side slopes. And we also have information from DEP on a superseding order where they actually were the permit granting authority in Hopedale last year. And we have, if you allow me to share my screen for this and the following project, DEP has.
hold on. I'm going to stop you right there. I'm glad that you've done this investigative work, but other projects really have no bearing on what's happening here. And what I'm going to say here is quite clear. The reviewer for DEP had an opportunity to look at that basin, and it's the same basin that is before us today. And that reviewer stated that it did not meet the criteria.
And we've moved it.
You're still, a portion of that basin is still within the 50 feet. You moved it from the 25 feet.
Correct. So when it was at the 25, when it was at the edge of the wetlands, that basin, the infiltration portion was within 50 feet of the basin. So when we pulled that out of the 25-foot no disturb, that in essence pulled the bottom of the basin out to greater than 50 feet.
So the interpretation that we had is that the wall of the basin itself is part of the structure of the basin. If you don't construct the wall, then there is no basin. So that activity, along with outfall structures, are also considered part of the basin.
Well, that's where you're misinterpreting what DEP has issued both in Bellingham and across the state. They've allowed the berm and the off grading to be between 50 and the wetland edge.
So Mark, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I want to speak for a moment. So I've actually reached out to DEP today because we obviously need to have clarification on this issue. Now, way back in September, October, when DEP did issue the file number for the projects, both of the projects, that's when they came upon this comment that it appeared that the infiltration basins were not 50 feet from the resource area. So what we
correct, and they were correct.
That's right. And so what happens is we still continue to have the basin located within the 25 foot. It's up to the 25 foot no disturb, which is the same project that was originally submitted.
So let me just interject. The toe of the slope is between the wetland and the 50-foot mark. Where the actual infiltration occurs, which is at the bottom of the basin, or if it's a closed system, a Cultec system, that's at 50 feet. Very similar to the septic system you just saw. The septic system itself has to be 50 feet horizontally. Those chambers are 50 feet from the wetlands. The grading associated with that.
And that is correct. But, you know, we understand what you're saying, Mark, and I just want to let you know that we are being proactive with trying to get some clarification from them.
As did we. I just forwarded an email that I sent earlier this week after we got Frank's letter, just for asking for clarification. So that email also went out to the DEP Central Regional Office. We have not yet heard back. We don't anticipate hearing back, but in lieu of not hearing back, I have sent Jim Kupfer 5 examples and the definition in the stormwater management regulations, what that horizontal distance is. So if you could allow me to share my screen, I'd just like to go through those items.
I don't think that it is germane to this process.
Is
What
it-
we're telling you is that we are going
Why wouldn't it be germane to this process, sir?
Excuse me. Is there some reason, Mark, why you didn't send that to conservation?
We've been working with town staff from day one with Jim Cupfer being the liaison, and he asked that we send those examples.
Okay, okay, that's fine. Remember that, you know, Jim is the town planner, you know that, and that's great. You're in front of the Conservation Commission. We're looking for some kind of communication from you so that we can be able to read and understand where you're coming from.
Like I said, we got Frank's letter on Monday. We've asked DEP to weigh in, and we have multiple examples, not only in Bellingham that have been approved with this exact interpretation, but even sites that DEP has been the permit granting authority, they've allowed the toe of the slope and the berm to be within 50 feet of the wetlands. And I'd love to share that with the commission. I don't know how that's not germane.
That's great. That's great, Mark. And so I wanted you to know and your applicants to know that I have reached out to DEP also for clarification and unfortunately was not able to get a response. Once we get clarification, we can move on from this.
So what
No
I'm
sense in
saying is
arguing about it until we-
what I'm saying and is this exact situation has come up many times before, and they do not respond. They let the commission and their previous projects dictate how they rule. So I want to show you how they
Let
rule.
me interject now, please. I've never heard about DEP allowing previous projects to interview and to affect current decisions, but I am going to read directly from the DEP file number, and it says, it appears that the infiltration basin may not meet the 50-foot setback criteria to wetlands. Now, we are going to get clarification on that.
They were
And
correct. No, we
it seems that
agreed with that.
DEP wants to uphold this, then we will have to take that into account. However, if DEP says, no, we are revising what we have told you and that it is the basin bottom, then we can move forward with our review. I
So
think that's pretty clear.
you will not get that answer. What I'm saying is we've agreed with their interpretation on 2 of the 11 basins were within 50 feet of the wetlands. Those 2 basins got revised. So if you let me show my screen, I'll show you exactly how they've issued.
DEP will respond to us. DEP will respond to us.
No, they won't.
No, I was just
DEP
sure.
Mr. Chairman, you
Yeah.
know, can we just let Mr. Allen have a few minutes to just show us what he wants to show us?
That would be a great help. Thank you, sir.
It's just more information.
That's
We'll
fine.
take it for what it's worth, and we'll wait for DEP to get back to us.
Okay.
But we haven't denied Mr. Allen the opportunity to present anything.
Okay.
That'd be my recommendation.
I would agree with Neil. More information never hurts.
Okay.
So are we okay? Are we on the same
Yeah,
page?
sure.
Okay, Mark, you're ready to go, sir.
Okay, so I've requested a screen share. I don't know if I've gotten the screen share.
I should have given it to you. Let me double check again. Sorry, there's a lot of people in here this evening.
Oh, no, Sean, you're not in charge, are you?
I know. Who did that? There you go, Mark. Is it working for you now?
Let's see here. Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Come on. Can you see that screen?
We do.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the definition that is in the DEP stormwater management guidelines, highlighted in yellow. And the definition that they give is For number 6, infiltration basins should not be placed over fill materials, and the following setbacks should apply to the infiltration basins. Distances from any surface water of the Commonwealth other than surface water supplies and their tributaries, minimum 50 feet. So we have, over the last 15 years, held the edge of the wetlands, and based on the definition of surface waters of the Commonwealth, they say that the edge of a bordering vegetative wetland is that definition. So that's always the beginning point. And then the infiltration basin is a minimum of 50 feet. So that's the only guidance that DEP has out there as far as the definition goes. Secondly, we have a plan, and this is an important plan. We had a project in Hopedale that got appealed to the abutters, by the abutters, and DEP actually issued a superseding order of conditions. So what they did is they were required to get DEP approval. And in so far as DEP approval goes, they issued a superseding order of conditions, and they basically specified that the reason for this review was due to the stormwater management system and its compliance with the Mass DEP regulations. So I kind of highlighted in purple that the appeal was whether or not stormwater management systems were proposed to prevent flooding and impacts to the BVW. So in their final sentence, they basically said it's the opinion of Mass DEP that the project can be conditioned to adequately protect the interests of the Act. Accordingly, enclosed, please find a copy of the superseding order of conditions approving the project as currently proposed. So what I did is I took a screenshot of the area that was approved by DEP. You'll see that the 50-foot buffer line is shown in red, and it actually mirrors where the infiltration elevation is. So the bottom of the basin is where all of the infiltration occurs. So that 50-foot line in red is offset to the BVW. I think it's in sort of a gray. So the work in blue is between the wetland and the 50-foot buffer. And what that work entails is creation of the berm, which does not infiltrate and just basically shapes up the basin. Also in that area of blue is the outlet control structures and the overflow spillways. So that's right from Mass DEP Central Regional Office. That's what they approved in their superseding order of conditions. So that's very good identification as to what they allow for definitions of distance between infiltration and neighboring wetlands. The third thing I'd like to show, and just give me a second to pull it out, are parts or pieces of projects that the DEP has also approved and that the Bellingham Conservation Commission has approved. This one is Bellingham Shores recently approved. And this area in red, again, the red area shows the 50-foot to the wetlands, and then the off-grading is between the wetland and the 50-foot buffer. They did keep the bottom of the basin, again, 50 feet from the wetlands where the infiltration does occur. Secondly, I'd like to show, or thirdly, I'd like to show a project that Lincoln Properties did on the abutting piece, where they didn't hold 50 feet to the wetlands. This got approved at the state and local level where the infiltration basin actually sat on top of the wetland. So they had zero distance to buffer zones whatsoever. So they actually filled in the wetland and then put their infiltration on top of it, which is in direct contrast to what Mass DEP says. And the last item is a previous project that we did. I'm sorry, it's two more. Pine Hollow Estates was recently approved, and that work in similar fashion, the red being the 50-foot to wetlands shows that the infiltration portion of the basin is greater than 50 feet, but the off-grading, the overflow spillway, and the outlet control structure are between the 50 and the wetlands. And then just because Kevin Lobiser is the applicant here, he was also the applicant on Crystal Springs, condominium development off of Crystal Way. You may recall that this basin at the end of the cul-de-sac had its infiltration basin designed specifically so that the bottom of the infiltration basin was greater than 50 feet away from the wetlands, shown in red, but that the berm, the outlet control structures, and the riprap spillways were all between the wetlands and the 50-foot zone. So I think we have, and I can pull up hundreds, if not thousands, of other projects across the state exactly like this. So I think we have a wealth of knowledge of how DEP acts as far as what that definition occurs. They were correct in their letter that said 2 of the 11 basins were within 50 feet, and we've made those changes.
And that is exactly why I have reached out to DEP today, Mark, because if we're not getting the proper information from them in their comments, then how do they expect us to be able to administer the Wetlands Protection Act?
Just the same way we just did the last 6 examples.
Better talk.
So that we can find out what is going on with these comments. That's all I'm saying to you.
What I'm
We're
saying is,
making our effort to try to work with you. And that's all I'm trying to say.
so what I'm saying is, in lieu of having a DEP response, we've just shown you 6 examples of how they've acted.
And
We can show you hundreds of examples.
And I didn't write the DEP comments. DEP wrote the comments.
And they were
Are the local
2 of the basins were within 50 feet of the wetlands, and we moved them out.
Never
Protection
stops
Act.
there.
Excuse me, Mark. We are the local authority that administers the Wetlands Protection
Are
Act.
you a commissioner, Ann?
Excuse me?
Are you a commissioner?
I am the administrator.
Okay, I just want to hear that's all.
You know the answer to that. I don't understand the nature of that question. I find it
It's
argumentative.
okay, it's okay. And so what we're trying to do here, Mark, is reach out on your behalf and our behalf to get clarification. That's all I'm saying to you. It's not.
We
that
have the
we're
clarification.
Aggressive. We're just trying to get an answer so that we can move forward with your project.
Mr. Chair, I think that, I'll speak for myself as a commissioner, I'm hearing pretty clearly that the commission has a plan to address a need for clarification, which is our purview, as far as I understand, to decide if we need more clarification from the DEP on a DEP comment, and that should be it. If the applicant's not happy with that, he's made that point pretty clear. I think we need to move beyond that if we're going to hear any more presentation or not tonight. This is just going back and forth, and I think both sides have made their case here for how they feel about it, but I think it's in our purview to get more information if we feel we need it from the DEP, since it's a DEP ruling, and I think that's a reasonable thing for us to want to do. If the applicant doesn't agree, then so be it.
All right, what I will do is, we have our peer reviewer is present. I'd just like to ask if they have something to add or any thoughts that, you know, they may have relative to this, but it'll be the same situation, irrespective of, you know, it's just an opinion. We're waiting to find out what DEP says. I know that Mark doesn't think DEP will get back to us, but DEP always gets back to us. So I'm confident that that will happen. Is Frank or Matt present?
Good evening. Yeah, this is Frank DiPietro. I'm present. And we again agree with the commission that DEP made the comment. They're the ones that are supposed to interpret it. I will say I checked with my own background, checked with the number of other folks at BSC, and we've had different interpretations at other projects. We've never had this, the one that Mark has had. We've had people say that we have to go to the outfall. We've had people say that we have to go to the top of the inside of the basin where the maximum water level would be. We've had one person say that we've got to go to the outside of the basin wall, the exterior wall, where the access for maintenance is. And then we've actually had people say that we have to go down again to the bottom of the slope. So DEP folks, they made their comment. It's presumed that the comment person is competent, understands what the regulations are. And again, it would seem reasonable that since they made the comment, DEP should be the person that clarifies it. If whatever way the DEP folks decide, again, we're going to accept that. And it may be very, same as what Mark has already said. It may be different. We just don't know. And I did go through a lot of the files and talk to some of our other environmental folks. Other than that one comment in the Stormwater Handbook, Volume 2, that says it is the infiltration basin. If you look at the details that are in there, they don't say where they measure. They have a cross-section that shows the outfall, shows the berms and things like that. There's no guidance that I can find that says you measure from the edge of the bordering vegetated wetland and you go to this point on an infiltration basin. So that's something that is uncertain.
Well, that's how we felt about it. So our administrators reached out to DEP. We usually hear back from them within a day or two. And I think, like we said earlier, if the reviewer says that it's the basin bottom, then we will proceed. What I'm anticipating here is if that is the case, then we'll notify Frank to proceed with the actual engineering review.
If I could add to that, Frank, and thank you for your interpretation of the DEP's loosely written bylaws through the Stormwater Management Handbook. I would suggest that based on past approvals from this commission and DEP, that the stormwater be fully vetted, because the only change it's going to make, the same exact basin is going to be 5 feet away or 6 feet away. It's not going to change the review of the stormwater system. It's just going to be a location.
I've only been involved in one of the examples you mentioned, Mark, and that's the Bellingham shores. When I looked this afternoon at that plan set, that's basin 2 of that. The line goes to the top of the basin. It doesn't go to the location where the water infiltrates. Now, that may be just the accident of where the location is.
Correct.
But I can't assume that that meets with your maximum high water for the infiltration inside or the bottom of the basin, based on that one example in Bellingham that I have.
Yeah, like it's unfortunate that Bellingham posts all the projects online, so we were able to pull multiple examples and then pull from examples that we've had in town with Crystal Springs. And yeah, it's always been to the high water mark of the 100-year storm.
I don't ever recall having this discussion at Crystal Springs, but I will address Lincoln Properties since you brought it up. You understand that that area was not jurisdictional to DEP.
Yeah, we didn't do the project, so I'm not unaware.
Okay, so but you brought it up, and we're very adamant that we allow a wetland to be filled and a basin to be placed right over the wetland in complete avoidance of DEP standards. That's what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's not the case. Is that correct? It's not the case. Please admit it.
I don't have any understanding of that site. We didn't do the design work on that property.
It's up there for us to look at. I mean, if you don't have understanding of the site, don't throw it in our face and say, look what you did. Look what you allowed. I mean, that's just bad.
Well, I mean, on our side, I can only speak to our side. All of the vernal pools and the isolated land subject to flooding, the applicant has avoided all of those fillings and has zero fillings of those areas where Lincoln Properties did allow non-jurisdictional wetlands to be filled. We've gone above and beyond and actually kept all the no filling and all the protection areas to those.
So, Mark, I think that we're, and I hope you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, but I think we're getting off track here. We're talking about a different project. We don't want to go there. We have enough in front of us right now with the issues that we have. And I will reiterate that I have reached out to DEP. I have been assured by a phone call that they will be getting back to me for clarification on this issue so that we can move this project forward.
So in the future, if I could ask, and because this is dragged out for so many months, I think this question, as far as Frank goes and BSC goes, this could have been a phone call or an email that could have happened 6 months ago, 9 months ago. I just hope that moving forward, we could have that sort of open dialogue. Not only this question, but I think further questions on the next hearing.
And we certainly hope that we can have good dialogue going on. But as you know, DEP issued these comments way back in October. So it's not any new information. And so when we did get the revised plans, I guess we were kind of surprised that the basins weren't moved.
Well, that's where you misunderstood. We did move the 2 basins that they commented on.
Address that issue right now by getting clarification from DEP.
But what I'm just asking is, can we talk to Frank freely between now and then, just so we can avoid unnecessary paperwork and confusion?
No, we don't allow that normally, but what we will encourage you to do is speak to the administrator directly rather than give information to the town planner and hope that it trickles down to her, because that just adds extra step and time. I mean, you sent information to Jim today, and you know, I know you've been interacting with Jim. I know he's been the point of contact for the project, especially for planning and zoning, but he is not here doing the administration of the Wetlands Protection Act. Our administrator is. So I'm sure she would appreciate it. I would certainly appreciate it if we didn't hear things from you to Jim where things are lost in translation.
I'll forward that to you as soon as I get back to the office.
In moving forward, because the
Absolutely.
idea here is not to hold the project up. The idea is to make a project that works well and will work well in the future. That's what we're here for. And that's what we have always done.
And that's what you have in front of you.
Well, we will review that and make sure.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Sorry, I got the video going again. Hey, also, Mark, do you mind stop sharing the screen so I can see everyone's heads? So just a couple clarifiers real quick, if I may. So yeah, so I did reach out to Mark today to get some clarification based on the peer review, and he did say, yes, there's some examples, and he forwarded it to me recently, and you know, it was well after your guys' deadline, so I obviously wasn't going to forward it over to Ann right now. But one thing specifically to this hearing, not the next one, but specifically to this hearing, is we have to remember, well, I would like for us to remember that this is town property, and these are basins that are seeking MS4 compliance. So I completely agree and understand that you're looking to get guidance from DEP, and that makes a world of sense. But if in the absence of their response, if it is still gray, my concern is, I hope that we're looking at the intent of the bylaw and making sure that we're managing it successfully, but also in the best interest of the community. Because, you know, ultimately what this will do is shrink the basins if we're looking at this extremely conservatively. And I'm not saying you are, I'm just saying if that is what the translation is. And so, you know, these are important basins for MS4 compliance. And so I'm just, you know, once we get clarification from DEP, if there's an opportunity to keep it to an extent that will be more beneficial to the community, I hope we do.
Oh, we absolutely understand that. And in point of fact, that second larger basin was only added at the assistance of the commission. So we understand exactly
Absolutely.
what the town is up against. And what I said earlier, I don't know if you were able to hear it, but what I had said earlier was that if we get information back from DEP and DEP says, no, it's the basin bottom, or these basins do meet the criteria and the initial review was incorrect, then we free Frank up to do the engineering review and there'll be no delay.
I have
So-
nothing planned for this weekend.
Yeah. Okay. So, that being said, I know we have the Vernal coming up. I'd like to continue no second meeting in May because of the annual town meeting. So, in the event we get the information back from DEP,
We will, we will.
we will. And DEP concurs with Allen Engineering, then Frank will be encouraged to complete his review. And so I think that by our first meeting in June, that review should be complete. Frank, what do you think? That would be June
Yes.
9th?
That would be fine.
Okay. That being the case, I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing to the evening of June 9th at 8:10.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, by unanimous vote. So now we'll go to the second one. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold continuations of public hearings in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposal to construct roadways, associated utilities, and stormwater management system for the residential subdivision entitled Red Mill on the Charles, consisting of 109 single-family dwellings and 54 townhouse units. The proposal includes 247 linear feet of alteration to bank, 3,180 square feet of impacts to the bordering vegetated wetlands, 6,600 square feet of proposed replication, 967 square feet of impacts to land under water bodies and waterways, and 117,892 square feet of proposed alteration to the riparian zone, including 17,969 square feet in the inner riverfront area and 99,923 square feet of impacts to the outer riparian zone. The project is located at Assessors Map 51, Parcel 13-1, Mechanic Street and Mill Street, Bellingham. Mark Allen, Allen Engineering, Hopedale, Mass. has submitted the filing on behalf of Kevin Lobuser, Snowflake LLC, Hopedale, Mass. The continuations will be held online by the Zoom option on Wednesday, May 12th at 7:30.
Recuse myself from this one as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know the last time I read the advertisement, Mark commented that the numbers have changed drastically. And I think that's one reason why Ian reached out. Normally when we get a wildlife habitat evaluation, we have a revised narrative for the notice of intent that explains how the project has morphed. So that will be an outstanding information request. But okay, so again, I think we're in the same situation that we were. I don't imagine, Mark, do you have anything different to add?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark Allen with Allen Engineering, representing Snowflake LLC with Kevin Lobuser. I have Michael Dryden here on our staff and Jeff DiRigio from Sage Environmental, both on the Zoom call. What we have done between the last meeting and this meeting is issue a 61-sheet revised set of drawings that incorporate the vast majority of the riverfront capturing elements, as well as the alternatives analysis, detailed alternatives analysis, and the wildlife habitat study. So We have added all sorts of tables and impacts and a lot of great sheets to the set based on previous comments from this commission, from BSC, and we'd like to present those here tonight. I do, like I say, I have Mike Dryden. I'd like to have Mike just kind of walk through what he prepared for the alternatives analysis, and then Jeff to do the wildlife habitat evaluation.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Again, Mike Dryden, Senior Project Manager, Allen Engineering. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, the first thing I want to address is what you just said regarding the numbers changing. And we can also go through this with BSC's comments. They're requesting a revised Form 3 so that we can kind of give you all those numbers. But I just wanted to make it clear that we did add all of those numbers directly to the plan set on sheet R2. We're happy to give you a revised Form 3, a table. We're happy to do that, give you that information in any form that you like, but it all is on the plan set for your reference.
Yeah, narratives are very helpful when you're doing a final review in order to prepare an order of conditions, because we need to have.
Sure.
It's great to have certain things on plan sets, but those kinds of things are better in a narrative form.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't disagree. And you may recall in our previous comment response, we did provide a table. So we're happy to do that same exact thing, just so the information is readily available and easy to find.
That would be great. Thank you.
But sure. And just in the interim, if you do want to refer to those numbers, please just refer to sheet R2 and all those numbers are there for you. So as Mark mentioned, we did provide revised plans, and as part of that, we provided an alternatives analysis, and I can walk through that with you if you like. I'm not sure what the pleasure of the commission is, but again, we do have comments from BSC Group, and there's some good stuff in here relative to the waivers. And if it be, again, the pleasure of the commission, I think it might be very beneficial for the entire project team and the commission to revisit the 2 remaining waivers. There are 6 total. And it would be really great to get some feedback on those waivers tonight, if possible. So I'll proceed any way you like, Mr. Chairman.
Alternatives? Want to do the alternatives?
Well, I mean, normally what we would do is we would have you respond to BSC's comments in writing, and then we have the opportunity to do that. If you want to give us a thumbnail sketch, I mean, that would be fine.
Okay. Okay.
I know one of the things that really concerns us is the location of the basin in inner riparian zone. In essentially in the alternatives analysis, I believe it was stated that, you know, the grades don't work. I think that was what the comment was, but I know that it was highlighted in the BSC comment. But if you want to give us a thumbnail sketch, that would be great.
Sure. Just to, since you brought that up, Mr. Chairman, I did state that in the alternatives analysis. As you can appreciate, the basins need to be located in the low areas of the site, which most times are adjacent to the resource areas. And the way the Wetlands Protection Act reads is that stormwater basins within the riparian zones should be avoided unless there's no practical alternative. In this case, there is none. So we moved as much work. If you compare the last plan to the current plan, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised to see how much of the stormwater, in addition to a lot of the other work, that we've moved outside. And it's probably important to note here, just in context, that just for everybody's sort of refresher, we initially were taking the approach that we could alter what was currently altered today in the riparian zone, and that would be greater than 10%. And we had a lot of discussion on that, as you'll recall. And the burden of proof on that was obviously just going to be too much effort, too much time. So the applicant decided that we would back up and make sure that we didn't alter more than 10%, which is a provision in the act, excluding stormwater management areas. So that's the approach that we took, and it resulted in the loss of some lots. It resulted in some fairly significant revisions to Road D, which used to be sort of a paperclip shape, if you will, a horseshoe shape. It's now a lollipop. That does require a waiver from the planning board. The planning board is on board with that. So I guess just to summarize, we've made significant changes, and that table I mentioned that's on sheet R2 of the plan set, I thought it would be helpful to include what was originally submitted and what the plans currently reflect. So you could see sort of the history and how much work we've done to reduce the resource area impacts. Just to quickly touch on the waivers, BSC's, they mentioned 5 waivers. You may recall that we added a 6th waiver. And so there's a couple of, I'm sorry, I'm confusing the planning board with the conservation commission. They're all in the same letter. The three waivers with the commission were, 1, the 25-foot no disturbance to wetlands, and 50-foot no disturbance to vernal pools. As we mentioned last time we were here, we removed all of the work from the 50-foot no disturb to vernal pools. We have removed all of the work within the 25-foot no disturb to BVW, with the exception of the 2 crossing areas and 1 area in the northwest corner of the property where it's impossible for us to outlet the basin at the end of Mill Street. So there's a small encroachment there. But again, we've gone through great lengths to remove all the work with those 3 exceptions. The other 2 waivers on page 3 of BSC's letter are no longer needed. And I believe we mentioned that last time. 247-333 is to maintain 1 foot of freeboard with a 100-year ponding elevation. That waiver is no longer needed. And then 247-336 and 9, the basins are to hold a 25-year storm event with frozen ground and allow no increase in runoff of the 25-year storm. So initially we were asking for those waivers, but they no longer apply. So we're very happy to report that.
This was, I think, based on the exhibits that you had presented back in February. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So I just wanted to kind of, as a refresher, update everybody on the history of the waivers, and we've significantly reduced that list of waivers. In terms of the alternatives analysis, I'll just touch on that very quickly. I gave you some introduction and background, existing conditions, proposed project description, and essentially we've put forth the preferred alternative, which again reflects all of the revisions and all of that reduced buffer zone and resource area impact, which is the subject of the 61 sheet plan set that you have. And then the figure B in the packet, which is the dead end alternative. We wanted to put forth an alternative that directly responded to DEP's comment, one of which was to not only provide the detailed analysis, but also they specifically mentioned eliminating the crossing of the perennial stream. I think we all understand the importance of that crossing, and we certainly do not advocate that in any way. But in an effort to check the box and make sure that we provided the alternatives analysis, we did just that. So if you look at figure B, if you have that handy, it's essentially identical to the preferred alternative, but it shows 2 dead-end roadways on Road A, such that there's no longer a proposed crossing of the perennial stream. In that scenario, the existing culvert that's there now would be utilized for emergency access. So no improvements would be proposed. It would essentially stay in the condition that it is in today. So that alternative over the preferred alternative was approximately 4,680 square feet less of riverfront area disturbance. But as I outlined in the alternatives analysis, and by the way, I fully understand that planning aspects are not something that is under the commission's purview. We fully appreciate that, but we just want to remind the commission how important the roadway network is and how important that crossing is for traffic circulation. And I would suggest that 4,680 less square feet of riverfront area is not very significant. And by the way, that alternative would actually result in a little bit more buffer zone impact. So I think when you consider all of the planning considerations resource area impact considerations, clearly we still strongly support the preferred alternative. But again, wanted to put forth the alternatives analysis as requested by BSC Group and DEP.
Okay. So, Frank, I think what we're going to do is we're requesting that Michael and Allen Engineering respond in writing to your comments. Again, we're going to wait and see what happens with our conversations with DEP. But in the meantime, I think we can probably start looking at some of these other documents. I know that Matt might be have already begun doing that. I don't know if it would be helpful for you to wait for written comments first, or whatever method you would prefer for that.
I think Matt has gone through, and correct me where I'm going wrong, on the alternative analysis and also the habitat. There's one item I just want to bring up, and I'm reluctant to bring up about the infiltration basins, to be very honest, but I'll make this very short. And that is infiltration basin 2. That when I look at that design, I'm seeing that certainly the forebay and a portion of the interior of the basin itself are within the 50-foot setback from the bordering vegetated wetland. And granted, it's a small area, and maybe there's a DEP comment that says forebays don't count because they don't have that much infiltration, but the 100-year flood elevation is actually above I think it's 225.5. It's above the area where a portion of the 50-foot wetlands sort of setback is within. That basin, I guess I would request, certainly we want to find out from DEP if Mark's interpretation is correct. But even with that one I'd want to have people take a look at. I think the rest of them, if Mark's interpretation is correct, the basins are going to basically meet that setback requirement. But that one basin, I'm just asking them to take a closer look at, because when I look at things, it's really clear that the 50-foot setback is in the corner of that basin.
Okay, so noted, Frank. We'll go back and look at that more closely.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to be up against it. We have a stacked agenda again tonight. But what I was going to do is, now Matt's here. Again, I think in terms of the habitat analysis, we've taken a quick look at it, and there's some good comments there. There's some items there I think that are worthy of a good study. I know Matt has reviewed it, provided some comment, and again, we're going to ask that we get written responses to Matt's comment. Is there something that you would like to highlight here as part of the public hearing, Matt?
No, I would say that my initial review of that document looks pretty good. It did raise some questions, some important questions that are in the letter, specifically the recreational area. I'd love to hear some kind of addressing of what that is, because I don't see it in plans, and I'm not sure kind of what that was. That'd be helpful to understand.
Yeah, that's my fault. So we brought Jeff DeRigo on board to prepare the habitat evaluation. I gave him some narrative language, and we scrubbed it for the latest plans. There's no longer a recreation area on the project. That was on the previous iteration. So I sincerely apologize that the narrative still mentioned it, but it's no longer part of the project set.
Okay, great. That would be great for you to just address that in the comments so that we, have a clear record of where we stand on.
Okay. And Jeff is here if you have any other questions about the habitat evaluation.
At this point, beyond what's in the letter, I think that's a good starting place to begin the discussion.
I appreciate it, Matt.
Thanks.
And one more thing to take a look at, sorry.
Sorry, Frank.
The infiltration basin 4, I have some comments in the letter. If you could take a look at those comments, I think there's some, you might want to consider some minor adjustments, particularly to the outfall for that basin.
In what respect, Frank? Do you know?
You mean 5, Frank?
I'm sorry, basin 5, excuse me,
Yeah,
basin 5. Excuse me.
I looked
Basin-
at that today.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that looks like it's going to discharge to lots, 76 or 77 or something like that.
Yeah,
I think
you're
it can be
correct.
directed elsewhere.
You're correct. And we can, what the intent was to build sort of a berm, if you will, at the top of that slope.
Mhm.
I'm going to embellish those contours a little bit and provide some spot elevations, but we certainly understand your comment, and it's not the intent to outlet that basin down the slope toward the units. We're going to direct it directly west toward
Correct.
That's good.
Unless you want to have some irrigation for the backyard garden.
I like that. Embellishing contours. That has to be my favorite line of the night so far.
So I win.
Well, so far, the night is young.
Okay, so I think we have a plan moving forward here. We have some work to do. Again, we'll be awaiting comment from DEP, and again, if Mr. Allen's correct, then we'll do the in-depth review of the calculations and all of that moving forward. In the meantime, Allen Engineering can address in writing the letters, comment letter from BSC, and we can keep moving forward.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say that I appreciate the, on the plan set, page R1 and R2 with the color coding. That's very helpful. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, I know, I would imagine that we want to keep the projects concurrent.
Mhm.
Okay, so that being the case, I will entertain a motion to continue the hearing for the Red Mill project to the evening of June 9th at 8:40.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, by unanimous vote. All right, thank you. We've all got work to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care now. Okay, now we have Pelletier Drive. Hey, the Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold public hearing in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act or General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw on the notice of intent for the proposal to upgrade a septic system from an existing 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom septic system located within a 100-foot buffer zone to Lake Hiawatha at Assessors Map 70, Parcel 63, 35 Pelletier Drive, Bellingham. Margaret Bacon, Civil Site Engineering, Uxbridge, Mass. has submitted the filing on behalf of Jason and Jennifer Fantanini of Pelletier Drive, Bellingham. The hearing will be held via the Zoom online option on Wednesday, May 12th at 8. Hi, Margaret, you're back.
Hey, good evening again. Brief description, or you want me to open up the plan to screen share?
Let's do the share screen. It makes it easy. There are a lot of folk here. I don't know. Some may be abutters, so we'll make it as easy as possible for everyone. Sean, could you allow Margaret to?
Yep, Margaret should still have co-hosting ability.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I hear her clicking. There we
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm here representing my clients, Jason and Jennifer Fantini, And as you said, they are upgrading an existing 2-bedroom house to a 3-bedroom. They're adding an addition. And because of that, they have to upgrade their septic system. So I'm going to zoom in a little here.
There she goes.
Bear with me here.
Okay.
Okay. So just to get your bearings, here's Pelletier Drive. They're right at the corner of Pelletier and Lakeshore Drive. Their existing system is in this general area right here. So in order to upgrade from a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom house, waivers are not allowed. So you have to meet the full requirements of Title V. In order to do that, we had to move the system over here, so I had enough room. Otherwise, it'd be too close to the lake on this side, and it just it would have been a raised system over there due to groundwater. So basically, what we did, where the existing system is right here, we're replacing the existing tank. We're gonna pump and remove, put in a new septic tank, a pump chamber, and then pump up to a 3-bedroom septic system, infiltrator system in the, I guess it's the front yard on the hill. And it is a step system, so it blend into the hillside much better. As you can see, the septic system is outside the 100-foot buffer zone. There's the 100-foot buffer zone is right there. So the only thing in the buffer zone really is the septic tank and pump chamber. So we're requesting a permit to do that activity, to upgrade.
Okay. So the administrator and I inspected the property. No sediment and erosion controls are proposed. But,
Not true.
oh yeah,
I do.
they're proposed down by the lake, but
Right.
not by the excavation for the
Okay,
for the leaching field.
sure.
Margaret, is the existing system failing? It looked like there was some breakout down there somewhere.
I didn't notice it when we were out there surveying it, but I do know if they wanted to put in an addition, that system has to be upgraded to a 3. And so that's what's actually triggering this. As far as I know, I think their systems work, and I didn't notice breakout when I was there.
Okay.
Do you happen to know how old the current system is?
I'm willing to bet it's probably the same age as the house.
Okay,
My guess.
gotcha. Thank you.
So it's a relatively straightforward project. So there is no sediment erosion control for the leaching area, but the homeowner, Margaret, may want you to do something, because in the event that there is a stormwater event, I don't know that they want to have, fill washing up against their house, but that's not jurisdictional to us. What is jurisdictional to us is the work around the tank, putting in the pump chamber, and are you going to be removing or the water line or going under it, or?
Chances are, it depends upon the depth of the water line. We won't know till we actually start digging, but anytime you cross over or go under a water line, you have to sleeve that water line. And I do have it, water line to be sleeved on 10 feet on each side. So chances are we're probably going to go over it, but I really won't know for sure. It is a force main, 2-inch force main.
Gives you like extra flexibility.
That's correct.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, we have a question from somebody. Are they allowed to unmute?
Can they put themselves on the screen? Can they video?
Yes, Jennifer, could you put yourself on? There we go. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay. Oh, hi.
Hello, folks. This is Jennifer Santini, the homeowner.
Yep.
In fact, our system is failing. That's why we're replacing it. It is the original system to the house. The house, I believe, was built in the early 50s. And so it's time for an upgrade.
Okay, so we'll need to make sure that that area is removed and clean material put in. Margaret, you're gonna have to see that. You know, we suspected that was the case. We didn't want to walk down into it. It's down near the water. It's probably just the other side of your sediment erosion control
Okay.
in that area.
Yeah. We can do something. We can remove the contaminated material and loam and seed that.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll put that in the conditions. Jennifer, thank you.
Hey, Jennifer, did you have another question? Your hand was still raised, or?
No, I think that was from the previous raise, but thank you very much. I
No
appreciate
worries.
all your help. Thank you.
Thanks, we appreciate it. So yeah, we'll condition that. So remove the material, put in clean fill, loam and seed.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward project. Like I said, it was an easy wetland delineation because it's the edge of the pond, the lake. Everything was as represented. And we saw the test pits, suitable material. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing and issue the prepared order of conditions.
So moved. Second, third, fourth.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, by unanimous vote, this is another one we'll put on for signature on Saturday. Okay, Margaret, thank you. Jennifer, thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Can I get that on?
Thank you all very, very much.
Good night.
Margaret, shall I send that to you?
Or do you want to pick it up on Monday too?
I'll pick it up at the same time as the other, but could you put that on single-sided also?
Of course, of course.
Oh, she wants everything, yeah.
Really, you want that gift wrap, Margaret?
Trust me, it's for recording purposes. It makes it a lot easier.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right,
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
no problem. All right, so we're actually running slightly ahead of schedule, which is a good thing.
Margaret, if you could, oh, thank you.
What do we have here? Okay, so one of the things we have is a certificate of compliance request for Duhamel Way. Does everybody remember where Duhamel Way is off of Pulaski Boulevard? It's the
It was known as DNN Estate.
DNN Estates.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Lot, 6 lots.
Yeah, 6 lots, 3 lots. 3 lots to the north were jurisdictional, and we had a no disturb zone marked off by fences. We got an as-built drawing. The administrator and I were out at the site today. The only difference between what was permitted and the as-built drawing is that the fence is not in the same location it was permitted. It's 7 feet further away from the resource area. So that's a good thing for us. Other than that, the site is stabilized. There's one other thing that we need to have done. So what I would do, I'm going to entertain a motion to issue, but we're going to hold back issuance until the sediment and erosion control is removed.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did reach out to the engineer who submitted the request for a certificate of compliance. I reached out to him today, and I copied the applicant, and asking him to remove that silt fence and the stakes. And as soon as he did, we'd be ready to issue the certificate. So it's been mentioned to them, and I expect to hear from them before Saturday.
Questions?
So we'll sign it Saturday, but you're not going to hand it out until they give you the thing.
I expect, Mike, I expect by Saturday, I will have heard from them that the silt fence is removed.
We can all drive over there after we sign if you want, just hang outside their house or something until they give in.
And
Well,
ask for coffee?
Yeah,
Hopefully, we won't have to do that.
fresh baked goods. I'm sure they'll probably. Yeah. Sure.
I don't think that really qualifies as a comment, Mike.
No. You needed to kill some time. You told me you're running ahead of schedule. Can't have that.
No, that's okay. We'll be happy to be ahead of schedule.
So you want a motion on that or to sign?
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to sign and issue the certificate of compliance upon removal of the sediment erosion control.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, by unanimous vote. Okay.
Oh, what is this one? That's the next one. Oh.
So we're going to open up the hearing for Locust Street. I'm going to ask that our Zoom administrator, who's also a member of the commission, recuse himself as a property abutter.
I am going to recuse myself from this hearing.
Fair enough. And there are a lot of folk here who are, I believe, participating in this or wanting to see the presentation, just so that everybody understands the process here. We're going to have the applicant make a presentation, and then the commission will have an opportunity to provide a little bit of direction, but this will be going out to peer review, and I believe our peer reviewer is present. What's the status of?
I think Frank is taking a peek at it and he will let us know.
We're waiting for the scope.
Yes.
Okay, so our peer reviewer is here to get his first cut at it as well. Upon his consideration, he'll provide a scope. The applicant will approve the scope, and then we can commence with the peer review.
So we'll be working, we'll have the peer review done with the planning board review, same as we have been doing for some times. It just makes it more of an efficient process.
Okay. That being said, I'll open up the next public hearing. The Bellingham Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing in accordance with the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw, on the notice of intent for the proposal to construct a parking lot, site grading, and stormwater management system within the 100-foot buffer zone to border vegetated wetlands associated with the construction of 110 townhouse dwellings in 36 buildings for the proposed residential subdivision entitled Bungay Brook Estates, located at Assessor's Map 93, Parcel 22, 30 Locust Street, Bellingham. James Almonte, Land Design Collaborative, Westboro, Mass. Has submitted the filing on behalf of Steve Viancasa, Elite Home Builders, Westboro, Mass. The hearings will be held via the Zoom online option on Wednesday, May 12th at 8:20. So I think James is here. Okay.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
We
Yes,
can.
sir.
Okay, great. So my name is James Almonte from Land Design Collaborative. I am a principal with the firm and registered landscape architect. Also have Michael Scott on the call as well. He is a principal and the professional engineer on the project. Karen Skinner Catrone is the wetland specialist. I believe she is on the call as well. I am not sure if Steve Vinicasa is on the call. I didn't see his name up there. He might be using a different name. I'm not sure. Again, we appreciate the commission's time tonight. I know you have a packed agenda, and I know this is somewhat of a large project. So again, we appreciate your time. Would it be possible if I could share my screen? I can walk you through. We have an existing conditions plan that I will start with, and then a site rendering that kind of gives an overview of the site. I think it might be helpful.
As funny as it would be to withhold it, you do have access. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let me see. Share. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the existing conditions plan. Again, it's located at 30 Locust Street. It is shown as map or parcel 22 on map 93 of the assessors. So the abutters to the property to the north is Jenks Reservoir and some residential homes. To the east is Locust Street, shown here. The town of Rentham line runs just off the property. There are also residential properties located off of Locust. To the south is Bungay Brook, which is a perennial stream, and some residential properties located off of Rentham Road. To the west is Squire Lane, residential properties there, as well as residential properties off of Reservoir Drive. So those are the abutters to the property. Currently, the site is a 57-acre property, which is currently operational as a 9-hole golf course known as Bungay Brook Golf Club. There is a clubhouse located on the northern portion of the property with parking spaces for about 130 vehicles or so. There is a single family, let's see if I can zoom in here. There is a single family residential home shown here and a maintenance facility that services the property. There is a lined pond that provides irrigation to the property. And then off to the north, there's basically a driving range. And like I said, it consists of a 9-hole golf course. So the property is accessed from its frontage on Locust Street. It's located on the west side of Locust Street. It's located in the suburban zoning district, as well as a small portion is located in the agricultural district in the northwest corner of the property. It's also located in the water resource overlay district. So there are bordering vegetated wetlands located to the north of the property. Again, the Jenks Reservoir is located there as well. To the south, again, we have bordering vegetated wetlands and a perennial stream by the name of Bungay Brook. There's also, the Bungay Brook is actually located off the property, but it does project riverfront area onto the property. To the north and to the south, we also have floodplain, Zone A and Zone AE. To the south, the floodplain is mapped at elevation 203. There is no elevation associated with the 100-year floodplain located on the northern portion of the property. We have no natural heritage jurisdiction for the property, and the soils are basically sand. We did some recent soils borings out there about a month or so ago that basically showed sand to a depth of about 25 feet. There are also a couple of monitoring wells located along the western property line. Current readings showed that groundwater was at a depth of about 26 feet on one of them, and I think it was 28.5 feet on the other. So that's down at about elevation 197 and 190. So the site is generally flat. The highest point is located at the entrance to Locust Street at elevation, I believe it's 234. And the lowest portions of the site are to the north and to the south at elevations about 195 or so. There are a bunch of rolling berms and depressions that were constructed when the golf course was constructed to kind of give it interest to the golfers that are playing the course. Wastewater for the clubhouse and for the maintenance facility and for the single family home are all on individual wastewater disposal systems, and potable water is provided by municipal water located off of Locust Street. So that's basically existing conditions to kind of orient everybody. So if I can call up the rendering, can everyone see that now?
Mhm.
Okay, so this basically shows the proposal for the property, which consists of 110 townhome buildings, 2-bedroom townhomes located in 36 buildings. 34 of the buildings are triplex units, and 2 of the buildings are 4-unit buildings located here. Access is in the same location off of Locust Street as it is today. But it's going to be basically a boulevard entrance with 2 18-foot travel lanes separated by a 10-foot wide landscape median, which will provide a nice approach to the site. The existing pond, we're retaining the existing pond as well. So as you drive into the site, it'll give you a nice welcoming feeling as you approach the development. 21 spaces in the existing parking lot will be reconfigured and retained, but pulled significantly off of Locust Street. So we have about a 70-foot buffer from the parking lot. I think there's maybe like 20 or 30 feet there now. So we're pulling that back and landscaping that area, decreasing a significant amount of impervious surface in that area. So again, we have an access drive, which will consist of 2 11-foot wide travel lanes once you get beyond the median. We also we're proposing a 5-foot wide bicycle walking lane off one side of the access drive. The majority of the units are located off of that main access drive, but we also have 4 cul-de-sacs, and I believe we have 12 buildings located off of those cul-de-sacs. They're 22-foot wide travel lanes with an 80-foot wide cul-de-sac bulb, which is in compliance with the town standards. We're also showing a 20-foot wide emergency vehicle access out to Reservoir Drive, which will be gated. I believe that's 20-foot wide. So parking for the development will consist of, each unit will have a 2-car garage, and we'll also have room for 2 spaces in the driveway. The minimum driveway length is 24 feet long, which is more than enough for a vehicle to park in the driveway. So in addition to the 5-foot wide bicycle walking lane, we're also proposing to repurpose the majority of the existing car paths and repurpose them into walking trails throughout the site. And we're also going to supplement the existing trails with proposed trails, which will be either mulched or stone dust, to create a network of about 1.75 miles of walking trails throughout the site. And those trails will feed into a common area centrally located into the site with tree-lined walkways and some benches for people to sit as they travel and walk through the site. The trail system will also provide access to a dog park that's located, I believe it's the 5th green, that we're proposing to basically just fence in that area to provide a nice amenity for the homeowners. So landscaping, we provided a landscape plan as part of the package, which consists of, again, the landscape median strip as you approach the site, as well as landscaping along the edging and to buffer the existing parking lot. We're also proposing a significant heavy landscape buffer along the westerly property line to buffer the residents from on Squire Lane and on Reservoir Drive. So when we laid out this development, we made a conscious effort to minimize the impacts to the site, to the buffer zone, to the woodland edges, and to maximize the distance from the abutters. The closest unit to any of the butters on Squire Lane are more than 300 feet away. And when the development is completed, we are maintaining about 80% landscaped open space. So we're minimizing, again, the impervious surface to the site. It's a compact development, again, minimizing impacts to the site and the surrounding areas. So stormwater, the stormwater system is comprised of lid practices with open drainage systems, as well as a closed catch basin and manhole piped collection and conveyance system. We have a series of detention basins, very shallow detention basins graded throughout the site, located in these darker areas here.
Do you have a detail for the stormwater management system? Details showing that?
Yes, well, the grading plan shows the grading for those systems, but we do have details as part of the submission package that shows, the stormwater treatment units and, the catch basins, manholes, things like that. We do have that as part of the set. So each storm drain flows to an infiltration basin. All stormwater runoff from impervious surfaces is pre-treated and retained and infiltrated on site. Wastewater for the project is a little bit of a moving target at this point, but it is currently designed with a private on-site wastewater treatment facility, which flows by gravity to a pump station located here, and then through a force main to a treatment facility located just south of that, and then to a disposal system located in the southern portion of the site located here, all located outside the 100-foot buffer zone and outside the 200-foot riverfront area. An alternative design for wastewater is currently being pursued, which runs off-site, down Reservoir Road, through the cemetery, and into the gravity system in Pine Acres. The applicant is currently negotiating with the diocese to get access through the cemetery at this point. So that is the preferred alternative, but that is still under negotiation with the diocese at this point. So we have no impacts to wetland resource areas. Again, we've minimized the impacts to the 100-foot buffer zone. There are no structures within the 100-foot buffer zone. There's only minimal grading associated with the stormwater system. And you can see this yellow line here is the 100-foot, 50-foot, and the 25-foot buffer zone. The green line represents the wetland area. The red line is the 100-year flood, and then this cyan colored line is the 200-foot riverfront area. So you can see that we minimize the impacts even to the 100-foot buffer. We have minimal work between the 25 and the 50-foot. Like, again, as I mentioned, there are no new structures within the 100-foot buffer zone. The existing clubhouse is within the 100-foot buffer zone, and the reconfiguration and the regrading of the parking lot will be within the 100-foot buffer zone. But the stormwater system for that parking lot will improve water quality over existing conditions. So all work will be upgrading of the erosion and sediment control, which consists of diversion swales, sediment basins, check dams, and anti-tracking pads. So that basically is an overview of the project, the proposal. We also have currently have submitted a special permit for special residential townhome development and development plan approval and stormwater permit with the planning board. We actually have a hearing with the planning board tomorrow night, our first hearing with them. We have met informally with the department heads a couple of times, once as recently as last week. And we've tried to, our initial meeting with them was about a year ago, and we tried to incorporate the comments that we received from them into the plan set that you're reviewing now. So in conclusion, I know nobody likes to lose a golf course, but we feel that the site was designed in accordance with the local and state regulations, and we feel that this development is an appropriate use of the property, and again minimizes the impacts to the site as well as to the surrounding areas. So with that, that concludes the presentation. I know this was basically just a brief overview and introduction of the project, and there will be peer review and comments received, and we'll look to address those as we receive those.
Do you have the ability to call up some of the individual plan sheets by any chance?
Sure. Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd like to take stormwater management systems. It's the 200 series.
Yep. Can get to that.
Okay.
Is there any sheet in particular you want to go to?
I just wanted to. We did take a look at this, and if you start at like even 201, some of the grading. I mean, it shows grading for the basins, but we don't see a lot of detail associated with that. Maybe I'm missing something here. Yeah, no, I see it. I see an inlet structure there.
Yep.
I didn't see the details either, Cliff.
Well, you know, normally we get grading plans, and obviously you're going to provide plans at a 40 scale.
Yes.
And
yeah, these are 40 scale plans. So we have 80 scale index sheets that show
the 11 by 17s. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. You're reviewing 11. Yeah, so the 11 by 17s may be difficult to read. I have Mike Scott on the call as well. So if there are specific questions on stormwater, you'd probably be the better person to address those.
Well, with depth of groundwater in your test wells and your deep hole tests, it would appear that you're going to meet the criteria for water resource district, which is 4 feet of separation of groundwater.
Right.
These are very wide. How can I describe it? This minimal grading.
Right. Yeah, they were designed to basically not look like they're there and make it look natural, very shallow.
Maybe that's why I had a hard time.
Yeah.
Them out.
Yeah, they're very shallow depressions. They're not your typical looking detention basins, like holes in the ground. They're basically just what I described. They're very shallow, natural looking basins.
How full are they projected to be? What's the maximum depth of water when they're full at a maximum minimal drainage, frozen ground conditions?
Let's see if I can. Let's see if I got Mike Scott. Is Mike Scott still on the call here?
Yeah, this is Mike.
There you go.
Thanks, Scott. To answer the question, just generally speaking, what we tried to do is sort of perpetuate what's out there today, which is if you've walked the course and are familiar with it, essentially everything internally drains internally. There are some drains on the site, probably some leaching catch basins and whatnot, but more or less everything runs to a fairway, somewhere in a fairway or one of the sand traps, and the water just infiltrates within the course itself rather than being piped off to the sides. Even the parking lot is drained into an infiltration basin. If you're familiar with the course, that's located directly in front of the irrigation pond. And in the event that that were to fill up, it would overflow into the irrigation pond and would subsequently discharge into a small depression just to the west of the irrigation pond. So we're essentially trying to perpetuate that condition where there is a piped catch basin and manhole system for the majority of the driveways and roadways. The rest of the site, the walkways around the buildings and so on, would just drain off to the low areas as you would experience today were you to walk the course. When we did the soil testing out there, we did 5 borings so as not to destroy the golf course while it's still in use. And each of those borings returned essentially, in simplistic terms, beach sand. Water depths were deep. The estimated seasonal high was deep. We've tried to maintain them. We have maintained the minimum 4 feet. We tried to maintain at least 10 feet and certainly have done so in most of the site. So the idea that what we're really looking at here is some large, shallow depressions where stormwater will collect as it does today and just infiltrate into the ground surface. In all cases, there is an overflow through, you know, I won't call it a swale, but a saddle, if you will. You know, there's a way for water that's ponded to make its way out and from the site should there be a condition where the ground is frozen or there's just an overwhelming storm, and in no case would it flood one of the proposed homes. But the idea was to keep the stormwater out onto the ground surface. Again, there's 25 feet of sand out here, and rather than install, I would say, unsightly or conventional looking stormwater basins that maybe are smaller and tidier and tucked away, the concept was to leave it open, because if you've played the course, it rains, it dries out, and you're back on it, you know, within hours. And there's no reason to think that that's going to substantially change in this, you know, post-construction.
Actually, I'm not that familiar with the course. We wrote the permit for it about 25 years ago, but that's the last time it was out there on the course. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to verify the wetland delineation. This is something we always do. It looks pretty much like it's toe a slope all the way around. At least my recollection is, for the most part, that's what it was when the golf course was originally permitted. So we'll need to set up a site inspection with your PWS. And we don't anticipate that that would be problematic. Is Frank still on? Our peer reviewer?
Once I meet, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so I guess one of the things, this is like large, low impact development. And so I guess what we're gonna do is request that you make sure that the low areas are sufficient to handle the 25-year storm with in its entirety, and to be able to hold the 25-year storm, anticipating frozen ground conditions, and all the freeboards, all the standard in our stormwater regs. Mike, did you account for those?
I'm still kind of waiting for a little more definitive answer. I understand they're very shallow depressions. We want to keep things natural. My question is sort of two-pronged. One is, if you know a depth that they should max out at of water, given that this is not a golf course anymore, and both the usage and the amount of impervious materials has, even though you're trying to decrease it wherever possible, is going to substantially increase. It's a residential area now, or it's going to become one, and usually around detention basins, if there's enough depth, we require fence for safety, and given all these residences, you would probably want to have that. It's a planning board thing, probably more than Concom, but I still didn't hear, I understand drains well, but do you not have calculations for frozen groundwater in these very shallow basins? Is it going to be a foot deep at the max, or is it going to be 3 feet?
Well, the stormwater report, there was a full stormwater report with depth of, you know, in each basin. we did not add that to the plan. It can certainly be added, and we can delineate on the plan where those ponding depths are. It will be obvious by reviewing the stormwater report. But again, we didn't call that out on each plan. We can certainly add that. And we did not add wicks or any sort of device to introduce, you know, or puncture frozen ground per se. We could certainly look at doing something like that. But we did not add that at this time, or have not included that at this time.
Well, Frank will be reviewing the stormwater management calculations, the drainage calcs, to make sure that it meets the criteria for the bylaw, the regulations. We're used to seeing low impact development structures more in line with small water quality swales along the sides of roads, rather than, like, you know, major structures here. So this is kind of new to us. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but we want to make sure that it's going to function in compliance with, all of our regular stormwater management regs, so.
One more observation, Mr. Chair, if I could, that I'm pretty sure that our peer reviewer will look at too, but in sites like this, although we're not as hard up against some wetlands areas as we might be in other sites, with this amount of roadway and residential occupancy, there's going to be I'm sure, snow removal plan so that we don't have snow piles created else, with oils and stuff in them potentially. And I know we are away from most of the 100-foot BVW borders, but just something to keep in mind.
So it's a good point. What we don't want to do, we're going to be relying on these maybe difficult to identify low impact development stormwater management structures that will be under snow. And we want to make sure that snow disposal doesn't take place in such a way as to impede the function of any of these. So we'll need to see a snow management plan, if you will.
Are these going to become town roads? Does Jim know that? Yep. Is that part of the plan eventually?
Maybe James can answer.
No, so this is being proposed as completely private residential system.
Okay. So road maintenance and future improvements and fixing of things and so forth is all on the private association?
That's correct, yeah, in perpetuity.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm one of the abutters. I had a question.
Okay.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was open to questions.
We encourage discussion.
In the northeast corner for the screen share, I think, Mr. Almonte, are you still sharing or?
Yes.
So where the parking lot's being added to behind where the current clubhouse is, where that wetlands, as far as that wetlands right there, where I think it's a 200-foot elevation. Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
So basically with the parking lot being added there, what would be the water runoff plan for that, for the storm runoff? Would it be heading right towards that wetlands or to a different basin?
No, it's picked up in a catch basin located here. You're going to zoom up. There's a structure here. So these are the contour lines. So it's actually grading away from this edge. It's flowing down a gutter line here into a catch basin. That's into a drain manhole that flows eventually into a pond, into the existing pond.
Because my concern right now, like you had mentioned, Locust Street is considerably higher elevation than the new parking lot to the 224.6 right in the center of the parking lot. My fear would be a lot of the water runoff in a larger storm would go right down that embankment, causing serious erosion into the wetlands. I'm actually the house right in front of that wetlands right there. And it's, yeah, that house right. It was misidentified on several of the plans that you submitted as John and Taruco roads, but it's me, Brian Rhodes, my wife, Larissa Rhodes, that own that property. But my concern is the water runoff.
Well, look at Brian's comment here. So I don't see an elevation on Locust Street. I see a spot elevation by Brian Rhodes' house at 236.
I believe there's a spot. There's a 234.6 right at the.
Okay,
Yeah,
234.6.
Yeah.
So I understand what he's saying. It looks like that could be a low point in the road. So you could be getting a run down Locust Street. There's not a whole lot of drainage on that, if I recall. I see a couple of catch basins.
Yeah, there's a couple catch basins right there.
Do we know where they go? And if they'll be sufficient to intercept some of that water, because you're going to be widening that access road, correct?
Slightly. It's pretty much utilizing the same opening that's there today.
Well, I think that's something that we're going to want our peer reviewer to look at. And it's something you might want to think about. I don't know where those catch basins daylight. God, I hope it's not down in the wetland. But back in the day, that's the way they used to do things.
Probably, right?
So yeah, I mean, I can see his point. And I don't know if you allowed for that contributory factor when you did your calculations, or was it all strictly on site?
Mike, do you want to address that? If you're still on. If you are, we can't hear you.
He got tired. I don't blame him.
Sorry, no. I'm sorry. I had minimized and I challenged finding the unmute button. We did not look at what could run into the site from Locust Street. There are catch basins in the street. The street is about 10 to 12 feet higher than the area we're talking about. So the parking lot presently runs to a catch basin roughly in the same area where the proposed catch basin is. And that catch basin runs in the same direction to a small infiltration basin right about where Jim is showing you. I was describing that earlier. So the site is contained. It slopes up and then back down at the property line next to Mr. Rhodes' home. Then the driveway continues down gradient behind the existing clubhouse. So that portion of the parking area below the catch basin would run down to a low spot and then would run over the lot line northerly into that wetland area behind Mr. Rhodes' home. That's the current condition. There's no change proposed to that, other than to reduce the size of the parking lot and to replumb it, put it in modern or up current standard catch basin, deep sump catch basins, deliver it to a stormwater treatment facility or unit before discharging it into the presently used irrigation basin or pond rather. So there is a chance that some water will run into the site. We did not assess that, as I say, but we're not looking to change any conditions at the road.
No, but what we always look for is an opportunity to improve conditions. So if that's a possibility, we'd like to investigate that. I'm going to ask Mr. Rhodes, to your knowledge, have you ever seen water from the existing parking area overtop and go down the bank?
At this time, it's not paved. The proposal is to pave it and bring it closer to that embankment. Right now, it's just gravel. So therefore, it's not as much of a impervious surface where the water does get absorbed. We do see a lot of erosion down the bank. We have a lot of people will come, kind of out of curiosity, cut over to the wetlands. However, you're dealing with all adult professionals. Golfers are pretty courteous for the most part. My fear is when we have a clubhouse here and visitors to the community, you're gonna have a lot of kids say, "Ooh, there's a pond with ducks, turtles, we have foxes that are really close there." We're just concerned about, it's a very steep embankment all the way around that pond. It's very sharp slope on the back northwest side. Or more of the west side of what you're showing right now is pretty steep, but also going from that parking lot, it's a decent slope. If you were looking at the clubhouse and looking out, you would not want to walk there because you could easily fall in and keep on going basically till you get to the pond.
I suppose,
We're actually pulling this further away from where it is today. I think this is a transformer here, which is like right on the edge of the parking lot now. We're pulling it further away, and it's going to be curbed as well. And as I mentioned, the gutter line, it's pitching away to the back edge of these parking spaces. So the gutter line is here, and it flows to that catch basin.
I'm seeing spot grades of 226.6 and in the middle of your parking lot.
Those are existing grades, Cliff.
Yeah, those are existing. The italicized ones are existing. The standard text is proposed.
So James, the way I understood it, the unpaved parking lot, yes, you're backing the paved parking lot back, but the pave is being added. But I'm not positive.
Right.
I'm looking at.
Yeah, it transitions. There are some areas that are paved that will be continue to be paved. There are some areas that are gravel that will become paved.
Yeah, and that's where I was concerned.
Yeah.
New pavement was going to be within the 50-foot buffer zone versus possibly relocating it outside the 50-foot buffer zone. If you go back to
Well,
the buffer zone,
the-
that's where
yeah,
I
the-
thought the pave.
I know it's hard to see on this plan, but that's the 50 foot right here. This is the 100.
Okay.
That's the 50. So we're just outside of the 50.
50 is the limited disturbance zone. So
But this is how the cement used to
I think I understand, and looking at that slope, you know, it looks like maybe it's a 2.5 to 1 slope. We might be well served by having a densely planted row of trees along there to prevent people from arborvitaes or
Yep.
something that will grow tight and keep people from wandering back down in there. You hate to have fences.
Possibly a split rail across the back of the parking lot, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
Something that would prohibit people but wouldn't look too bad and
Right.
allow critters to come and go as they might.
Right.
You might even need some guardrail right at that corner that's right at the
Right.
steep slope.
Right. Yep. I think that's a smart call. We can come up with some kind of natural barrier to
And that would
prevent
be a
people.
critical area. That would be a critical area for snow storage as well, to not have it in that particular along that side.
Right.
So
James,
that's something to keep in mind as well.
The other thing, James, I would be open to the concept, because I noticed in all the lighting diagrams of the spaces, if it was a natural fence of arborvitae or something to prevent the erosion, it'd probably minimize any trash blowing into the wetlands, but it would also cause a buffer of all the light pollution from going from one property to the other. So that might be
It's a good suggestion.
a amenable solution.
Okay, so I have another question. It's relative to the sewer line. I know that you're working with the church trying to gain access for a cross-country stub for your sewer line. You understand, of course, that any work associated with the sewer line that's in the buffer zone, you'd have to file for that.
Correct. Yes, we're aware of that. Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, one more question for Frank to be keep in mind. The pond that is used currently for irrigation is a lined pond, I believe both was said, and I thought I read it in some information. So it does not naturally, in any capacity, drain down or infiltrate, correct?
So Mike, what happened there is when the golf course was constructed, they needed a way to water.
Sure.
And because of the soil conditions, it couldn't keep water there.
Right. So that's going to stay that way, correct?
Correct. That's
okay, so my question would be this. If you're now having I don't know how much water flowed from what areas currently with the golf course into that pond, but if you're going to be adding to it, as I thought I was hearing certain descriptions as they went through the narrative, to the current input of water, and it's not going to be pumped out to irrigate golf courses, what's the plan going to be for when you get a lot of rain and then these other areas that are draining into it now flow into an area that does not naturally allow it to seep into the ground? Where is that water going to go when it gets close towards the top? I don't know how much freeboard there is now and how much room there is to go for storms, but it's not, unlike other areas, it's not going to gradually flow back down into the ground and be absorbed.
Do you want me to answer that, Jim?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so the existing parking area that was just being discussed on the northeast corner here, that's all piped into that area now. There is a small infiltration basin up gradient or upstream of the pond, just to the right, sort of under the new driveway. That will go away. Presently, water would enter that. If it overtopped, it would enter the pond. If the pond overtops, it enters another infiltration system on the low end. So we're sort of perpetuating that condition where water can continue to flow from right to left on the screen through that pond, and it will draw down. There's some inlet, there's some piping, existing piping that will not be removed right in that area. That does allow the higher flow to discharge so that it doesn't overtop the wall or flow onto what's presently a fairway. That will all remain. And then that's been evaluated in the stormwater model. As I understand it, there is no interest in removing the pumping system, and that system could be used to continue to irrigate the site, because for the same reasons they need to irrigate the fairways now, there will be an interest and a need, probably a desire, to irrigate the lawn areas and the green spaces and the landscaped areas within the development. So certainly this water can continue to be used in the future for irrigation purposes. And there is no intention or expectation that stormwater will infiltrate through the bottom of this pond, as the owner has described it. And as was just being discussed, this pond was lined. It's from what I understand, deep enough to hold quite a volume beyond what's needed. They only draw the top 4 or 5 feet off, as I understand it. But that wouldn't be a stormwater measure per se. It would be more of an aesthetic or landscaping measure. But again, the pond, it is assumed, the model assumes that it's full to the brim, not that it provides any significant volume. It's more of just a small attenuation area, not a recharge area.
So Frank, what we'll do is when you're conducting a review, you'll assume that the pond is full and we have a storm event, and we'll have to track where the water goes.
Right.
Okay, we have another hearing, but really quickly, is there anyone who's watching who has a question relative to the stormwater management system or the wetland resource areas?
A lot of my questions fall for planning board, Cliff.
Yeah, I understand that there are a lot of planning board questions, but all right. So we don't have the scope yet. So my proposal here is, and since we don't have a meeting on the 19th, our June meeting on the 9th is already full. So I'm thinking, Frank, if we get the scope, you'll at least have an opportunity, and we get the payment contract and everything is in order. Do you think it's possible that you'd have something on June 23rd?
Yes.
Okay, that's a month.
Yeah.
It's a month and a week. All right. So what I'll do at this time, I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing to the evening of June 23rd at 7.
So moved.
I second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you for not voting, Sean.
Okay. Well, we thank you. Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Oh, okay. Have a good night.
Good night.